Good morning, everybody. This is Judith Echo. You're listening to MadLove. Let's get into it. Yeah, occasionally I have this weird sleep pattern where I sleep really good for like 5 or 6 hours and I wake up at like 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning. And my goal is to sleep till about 4 or 5 and then get up and be super productive. But some nights that just doesn't work out. But I did get a good amount of sleep. It just got broken up. So anyway, that is heads and shoulders better than having to walk into an office on 5 hours of sleep or 4 hours of sleep, whatever I was getting, taking care of my mom. So I'm very thankful to be able to just ease into my day and get the rest that I need. So I'm excited about that. This is another big energy week. We're at the end of the Mercury retrograde, which that's the thing when Mercury goes backwards 3 times a year, and certain signs feel it more than others. I really didn't feel that much. I mean, there were a couple of nagging little things that didn't go well, a few communication errors, but for the most part, I had probably the best retrograde I've ever had. I've been doing a lot of spiritual work, a lot of healing. So going backwards, like looking back at the past was very impactful for me, which I've been doing a little bit all year because, I don't know about how it affected other people, but when my mom died, it threw me into an existential crisis because, you don't know how long you're going to get with your parents, and you don't know if you have a good relationship, it's the end of a good relationship. If you had a bad relationship, you'll never have a chance to make it good. And this person is the person you've spent the most time with. They cooked you up for 9 months, delivered you out into the world, and, proceeded to either give you a lot of great advice or a lot of not great advice. I had a good relationship with my mom, but it was nuanced. Because, like I said, my mom was sweet, but she could be really mean. She could say something that would just hurt your feelings. She could be very funny, but she could also be very cold. She wasn't big on crying. She loved my nephew to pieces, but one day he came over and he was crying about a girl. And I looked at him and then I looked at her and I was like, ordinarily my mom would be like really all over him. I was like, what's going on? You don't want to comfort Jeremy? She was like, not over no girl. I mean, she was not into crying. So if you were emotional, if she didn't understand it, it was just like you were on an island. If she couldn't comfort Jeremy, who was, her grandson, like oh, my grandson, like she didn't even cross that Rubicon for him. But, we had a nuanced relationship because she was a nuanced person and I wanted to be close to her. I wanted to live in a world where I was close to my mom. And I got it, but it was at a great sacrifice. And I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me, though. I love that lady, and I would take care of her again and again. The only thing I would do differently for real is I would get rich really fast because you need to have more resources to throw at this disease, especially if I'm going to have to do it by myself. Without any help, I would rather just have a lot of money and pay the help, and manage that, which is still stressful, by the way, because you still have to manage all of those people and you're still risking it. That's why it's so important to build a community, because you're inviting strangers into your house, and you have to trust that they are going to treat your loved one as if that person was their loved one. And I did luck out. I had 2 very, very good caregivers, one full-time, one that came every day, and one that was her backup. And then for a while I had a good one. I was kind of training her up though, because she really, I think she wanted to be a caregiver. She just wasn't used to like super old people or people with dementia. And so she struggled, and then her scheduling got erratic the second time she came back, and then was like, we're probably gonna have to move on. But that's what I'm saying, it's hit or miss. You got to be hopeful that the type of person you want to deal with is working as a caregiver, because I think you can be either a CNA. It really depends on what the situation is. There are retired nurses that do it. You get CNAs that do it. And then you get people who just want to make some money and they go sit with an old person for $9 an hour. I think that's about what they make. But the agency makes something like $29 an hour. So it's not cheap, and you should have a plan. People did enjoy people are enjoying the newsletter. I think you should sign up. It's a refuel by Faith and Gasoline, all written out at beehive.com. Beehive spelled BEEHIIV.com. /subscribe. You should sign up for it. It's good information. No one is going to give you this amount of specificity for free. It's the newsletter I would have liked to have had instead of having to scroll for everything at 3 o'clock in the morning after I had wrestled Cheez-Its out of my mom's hand and finally got her to go to sleep. It addresses everything from signs to look out for, to what to do with their house, who you should talk to, all the types of care you can consider. I remember a lot of people saying, call a place for mom. A place for mom is just a clearinghouse. They have deals with all the facilities in their region, and basically they're just going to refer you to a bunch of places, and they're all going to call you because they obviously get a kickback from people coming into their residences. So it's like, that's not what you need. I'm not saying don't call them, but just get ready to not get a lot of real help. In fact, the office I called wasn't even in St. Louis, so they have to call all these people, and then you're just going to get a bunch of phone calls to set up appointments to come look at places. And it's like, I could do that on my own. I can look and see if my mom could be independent, which was no, or if she needed assisted living, which was probably yes in 2021. And then did she need full-scale nursing, which was yes by 2024. It's not what you need, it's what can you afford. Certainly there are families out there who can bankroll it. Hey, she needs, $10,000 a month worth of care. My neighbor was paying $15,000 a month of care for his wife at the end, and he didn't like doing that, obviously, because it's a lot of money, but he's like, the more I do this, the less my son will inherit. Because you're spending it from somewhere. Because most people haven't saved $1 million to just give it away, So you have to pull the money from probably somewhere you plan to spend it elsewhere. And, it's a big topic. It's not a fun topic. This podcast is not the most popular podcast in the world. But it is got a small but devoted following. And people have been listening to this podcast for years, and they know the struggles that I've had with caregiving. But I just want people to understand, that's going to be the future. We're going to have a ton of old people, and they're going to be using up all the resources. You may have to go to the hospital and you won't be able to get in, or you may want to put your person in a facility and there won't be any beds. I think that's what they're preparing us for. Insurance has made sure that they don't cover very many things. If it's not a surgery or something acute, you broke your wrist or mom hit her head, or if it's not something like that, And thankfully, my mom hit her head, which is probably horrible because I can still hear her head cracking on the floor. And then she turned around and immediately she was like, oh, look what you did. And I'm like, I didn't do that to you. You did that to yourself. And then she started calling out for my dad. She was going to tell, it's like, you're going to tell my dad on me. You did all of this. And she was having one of those panic attack moments. And she had a Snicker bar on the top of her head, immediately. I had to get her dressed because I dialed 911, but I was like, Mom, we got to put on clothes. You can't go to the hospital like this. And finally, I went to the very great St. John's, and they admitted her. And then we immediately started having talks because they were like, she might need brain surgery. And I was like, she's 86. I'm not giving her brain surgery. And I called my sister, and we agreed that she should go to hospice, which sounds bleak, but it's not bleak for somebody who doesn't have a fast moving disease. And it was the best thing that ever happened. It was the most help that I got through this whole process. And I'm just saying, you guys may not have Alzheimer's patient. You may not have the kind of issues that I had, but you need to think about it, because your mom or your dad or your aunt or your uncle or somebody you love is about one fall away from needing long-term care. And people think they know what it is, and it's not that at all. There's very little help out here. You have to figure it out. And, it's weird. They raised you at a certain point to not depend on the government. Then they put a government in place that provided more. And then they started to resent that people really came to look at the government as some place to get some help. And now they openly, hostily resent people who, want a return on their investment from their paycheck all these years. And, the rules for Medicare are not what you think they are. You need to look them up. They don't pay for long-term care. They only pay for rehab after a hospital visit. And then it's only so many days. And then they do pay for hospice. So basically, you've paid into hospice. And that's nice, but there's a lot that happens to a person before they go into hospice. They don't just hand out hospice. You have to have a disease that they think you're not going to make it past 6 months. Now, it's true. There are people, my mom was in hospice for a year, almost to a full year. She got in January and she died in December. But they know you're about to die. And that's all they help you with. And then Medicaid is state run, and there's all these rules, and you have to know the rules and figure everything out. And, you can hire an estate plan attorney and an elder care attorney to figure out how to get your loved one to qualify. Or you can just grab the forms and try yourself. They're very tedious. I do know somebody who did that for her dad, though. But it's not a simple thing, guys. And all I'm saying is you're going to be living your life, and this will become a part of it. And it's stressful, and you feel guilty because you don't know if you're doing the right thing all the time. And yeah, like I said, this is not what people want to hear about. I get it, but it's so important. And if you're in the middle of this crisis and you're wondering how you're going to do things, my podcast and my newsletter will be supportive. That's all I can say. The world seems like it's going to shit. I don't follow that much TV. I don't know what Trump's up to on a daily basis, because I can be honest with you. His first presidency, I cared a lot. And his second presidency, I don't seem to care at all. And the main difference there is my mom died. And it's just, I don't care. Like, I remember when my mom was my age, and I miss her. And it goes fast. Those 30 years in between us they went really fast. And one minute she was, fun and sassy, and I could go out to dinner, and I could go out of town. We were just, it was more like a Frasier setup. And then she just started to turn into this little old lady. And then she became an Alzheimer's demon patient. So, I don't want anybody to just stumble into it like I did. So turn off your TV. Stop listening to this nonsense. I don't know. It's all propaganda anyway. They're not telling you the truth. I don't even understand how all these billionaires can own all these news outlets in the first place. Because I think it's very clear they don't want people to think about this. I don't know why you wouldn't prepare families. And so the only channel that would tell you about it, they just gut it. Because why would you need something like PBS when you can have all this propaganda floating around? Well, you're smart. You can see what's going on. People are acting like Judy's calling it. I'm not calling it. I'm just paying attention. I can see. I can see what's happening. And if you've gone through this grind of Medicare, Medicaid, caregiving, you realize like, okay, there's just no help out here. And if it's no help for my mom, it's really not going to be any help for me. That's how they've designed it. So we're smart. We're just going to have to figure out how to band together and build communities that make sense for us. And that's okay, because that's the way it used to be. The sad part is they got us believing like, yo, pay your taxes and do all this shit. And the crooks are in Congress. They're out here living their best life in DC, robbing from you. Look up all the insider trading these Congress people are doing. It's like, man, they can sit on committees and then go invest in what they know. That for me and you, that would be prison. We would be called insider traders and we'd go to prison like Martha Stewart. I mean, come on. And then, the loyalty to parties, all of it is a scam. This high-minded, well, only Republicans do. No, they're all wackos. They're all in it for themselves. They don't care about you. They're the same side of the same coin. They're different sides to the same coin. Democrats are not high-minded. They rob and fleece you too. Same as Republicans. They're all grifters. So you have to be careful. I've seen plenty of Democrats do dirt and be horrible, but they want somebody to vote for them, so they hide it. But we're in a time of revelation. There's no hiding. If you're a piece of shit, we're going to find out. So all you can do for real is look forward to a nice, quiet, impactful life. And it may not be, it may not look like it looks exactly right now, but it could be very nice. I mean, we weren't put here to struggle and suffer. And when you remember how powerful you are, when you remember that you are God, I call myself God's very own. But if you remember that you belong to God, which means you have a spark of God inside of you, then you wouldn't worry about the earth so much. You wouldn't worry about the world. They corrupt us and hijack our brains because they need us. They need our energy. They need our attention. And I think these billionaires are just bored. One of my friends says she feels like we're in the Hunger Games. I feel like we're in Game of Thrones, mainly because I'm more familiar with that. But also, my favorite thing about Game of Thrones is there was an element of fighting back. And, you had to fight. Everybody was fighting to win the throne. And that's the funny thing about a throne. When you finally make it, you realize it's probably not what you wanted in the first place. So then you stand back and go, what were we fighting for? Heavy is the head that wears the crown. And you're not God, so, and everybody's not a natural born leader, I'm here to tell you. There's a lot of people out here who need to go to leadership school because they think they know what they're doing and they don't. Just because you're smart doesn't make you a leader. And being a manager doesn't make you a leader. Getting a promotion doesn't make you deserve to be in that position. People are out here tripping. On that note, happy Monday. I hope it's blessed. I hope it's prosperous. It's a big energy week. We had a full moon right after Lionsgate portal, which I can't explain any of this stuff, but it's big energy. And it's, quantum life-shifting energy. So keep your thoughts positive. Be a delight to be around. That would be a gift we could all use. And we'll meet back here soon, tomorrow. Have a great day. Be your best. and I'm rooting for us. And we already know Mad Love listeners are going to win, right? So we can already see it.